Today, we have with us Srivalli ji to share her insights on the topic Calm Amidst Chaos. Let me give you a brief introduction about her. Srivalli has been associated with Sri Aurobindo and the Mother for 12 years. During this time, she has explored integral yoga and integral psychology through courses from Sakar, Puducherry, Gnostic Center, Delhi, and with Sri Partho's spiritual retreats. She has herself facilitated workshops on personal growth in the light of integral yoga. Srivali served as a core member and facilitator in the Integral School Hyderabad for 2 years since its inception. She's fond of children, flowers, plants, birds, and animals, and practices natural farming in her own garden. We are very happy to have you with us in this session today. So we will look at how in the current fast-paced life, we can remain calm inside while still engaging actively with the outside world. With this, I invite Srivali ji to take over the session.
Thank you, Harshita. Namaste to all the participants. Let me tell you that whatever insights that Harshita was talking about is entirely my association with Sri Aurobindo and Mother. As soon as I woke up to their presence, I can say life has been a really marvelous journey, an adventure. Before that, it was a journey, but my perspective and view on things used to be wavering between, whys and hows and lot of questions in confusions. It's only after that Mother's presence awoke, I can say, in my life, then the whole perspective of looking at life changed dramatically. Suddenly there was no questioning. I wouldn't say totally not, but this awakening to look beyond whatever the life has to present before you. There was a sudden change of the whole perspective that whatever comes in your way, there is a meaning behind it. So this journey became more interesting and adventurous and difficult too, because at each moment something comes and you feel you've learned something from it, and before you know that you've learned something else comes up fighting on you, and then you're like, where is this now coming from? I thought I've learned something. And so it's endless. At the same time, it is interesting as long as you stay and within, which means you don't actually look at the happenings on the outside as coming to torment you, giving you pain. But once you start looking at what is it in it that is trying to teach me, what is it that I have to learn from this experience, this thought immediately disassociates you from whatever is happening around you. And then, whether you understand it or not immediately, it definitely reveals itself to you in your journey or in the long run with your next association. So, however, you're moving in life. So, the whole attitude towards life brings about a change. So, your participation in life is more from inside than you be drawn outside with whatever that comes in your way. So, for this, to understand this, I had to explore more. And then I realized that a being is just not a single personality as we perceive ourselves to be. It was all the more interesting to understand that there are different paths within you, which we look at as a single person, but we are not. We are made of different parts of a being, which we associate ourselves or immediately identify ourselves and think that is us, and we tend to react from that identification. To make it more clear, when we look at ourselves, we with the identification, we think we are the mind and we are the impulses or the physical body, which we are really true, but not in our true identity. So, what becomes our true identity, which you would only become aware only when you step back in every situation that you face in life. That would be the very first step that makes you aware of the true consciousness within you. Otherwise, when we identify with everything that come across our path, we think that is ourselves, and then we tend to react to it. But when we try to dissociate ourselves and step back inside, we understand this is something acting out and there's something else within. So, for a simple example, there's so many suggestions now happening in the present pandemic, which is creating a lot of fear, apprehensions, doubts, anxiety, restlessness. All these are circulating around. What happens when we just dissociate ourselves from the whole suggestions that they are happening around, step back and try to understand what could be causing this? Is it a simple virus that is creating so much of confusion or restlessness, or is it something else? Is there something in it that we can learn from? Something that it is trying to say? If we change our attitude to this kind of drawing within and trying to step back and look at it, it reveals to us a different meaning to it. Already, I think many of them have learnt it in whatever way they could. From many, I've seen many messages, WhatsApp texts saying, yes, the nature is zookeeping now, we are stepping back and it's recovering. So there's so much that we learned. If we keep to it and learn from the situation, definitely the difficulty will pass away. If you're going to just look at the outside happenings and be worried about it, the difficulty will no matter fizzle out at some point of time, but not with so much of ease. So every difficulty, as Mother has said, has an inbuilt opportunity in it. So we have to train ourselves to look at what opportunity it is giving us, what new leash of life it is giving us. So the whole thing starts changing from within. Your perspective, your relations, the relation that you have with the difficulty gives you a new perspective, and you will start exploring the new ways of relating with it. But if you allow it to become part of yourself, it lodges within you, it gives you a suggestion, and you make it part of yourself, and then all this fear, anxiety, restlessness gets into you. So, the first very step of relating with life would be to step back. Each time that you have to create that awareness within you. Whenever it seems a difficulty, the moment you perceive something as a difficulty, just give yourself some space, withdraw back, and then look at it. The mind likes to actually give you a different constructs, suggestions, and tries to justify your thoughts. But the moment you step back and give it a good look, not being identified totally with mind, is when you will get the right perspective. For this to identify what your mind is saying, what your vital, what we call the impulses, the desires, and your whole life that you associate with is giving you what kind of impressions, and then your physical body, how is it reacting to all these impressions. If you become aware of it, how it is reflecting on these three parts of yourself, it's easier for you to go back and reflect on it. If we were to first understand our mind, it is mostly, it wants to associate, I can say, with your impulses, with your desires, and justify it. For example, if you are upset about something, the mind would like to tell you you're upset because of so and so and so and so, and it's somebody else's fault, it's the nature's fault, it's the virus's fault, so on and so forth. But if you do not actually listen to it and try to see within what could be the real cause that is showing whatever outside, because whatever we are inside is what that shows outside. So the collective problem that we see now, the whole universe, not just one individual, the whole universe is going through a situation, which means there is something collective that all of us has to work upon us to change the situation. Whatever the medicine might give us, whatever the support that we get on the outside will be a good support, but can we stop it from recurring again and again? Which is why we have to question ourselves from that perspective. What is it that I can change in myself that it helps in the collective? For which you have to impartially reflect on yourself. Reflect that you see that what the present situation is presenting to you, whatever the small amount, whatever weakness, whatever is lurking within, can we change that? Can we work upon it? Imagine if one individual can do this for himself, he'll be solving it in the collective. So, what happens when the collective does it? It is a solved situation for which the most essential attitude that we should all take is being calm. Whatever the chaos might present outside, it is a very imperative that we be calm. The moment you recognize something as creating a disturbance should create an awareness in you that you should become calm. This awareness should come within all of us. The moment we sense a disturbance or a chaotic situation is, let us remain calm, which means the very step, as I said before, is to step back. If you don't, and you're going to engage with the disturbance, it's going to create all the more disturbance, which will become a contagion, and it will start unendingly going without a stop. So the same reverse contagion that we can let out of ourselves, is that being calm, quiet, and peaceful. Only in that peace, in that sense of calm, comes the right direction for you. However difficult the situation is, there is no way of getting a solution unless you are calm. Now, when the situation is very chaotic, very disturbing, the one question that would haunt us is, how do we be calm in such a situation? How does it even occur to you to be calm? Because there are waves of disturbance. That is, in this session, what I would mostly insist upon is create that awareness within you. The first thing is, you have to understand that there is a situation that is disturbing, that is chaotic. Understand it first, and then slowly try to step back, which creates a sense of, once that's a dissociation has happened, it definitely gives you a kind of peace. I'm sure most of you must have experienced it. Try to hold on to it. Try to hold on to that experience. Never, you know, be drawn out. Resist the temptation. In that calm and quietude is what reveals the true meaning of the difficulty. We have no other choice but to be calm. So saying it does not mean calm means just sitting back and doing nothing. In the present situation, when we are asked to sit back, be in your homes and not coming out, doesn't mean sitting at home being restless, trying to, work out how to fill your time. The very opportunity that you got to sit back, not being drawn out in the everyday routine of life, means that you have to be introspective, think why the situation had come, reflect, and think about what change you can make within yourself first. Instead of try to solve 100 situations, we can reflect within ourselves and see, how am I part of this, and what can I do to solve it. It might not be going out and solving a situation, it is just reflecting within yourself and trying to change that could have caused the situation outside. So, the anger, the restlessness that we see among people now trying to adapt to a new situation will not solve it, but the quietude that you can infuse within your mind, in your heart, in your impulses, can diffuse the situation. What we need to radiate now is that calm, quietude, and peace. Our culture is so rich that it is always insisted on quietude and calm. And we always start with a whatever we need to do, anything that we take up, we do a prayer, do a Ganapati Puja and Shanti mantras. This is the time that we need to actually reflect on why that kind of culture was handed down to us, because we're always engaged in something outside and we do not understand the real meaning of being quiet and the very way of being quiet in the first place. So all this had been handed out to us, even if it is on the outside prayer, so that by invoking it, we actually learn and imbibe it. So mother has said in when people had asked her, Mother, how do we keep quiet? How do we invoke it? Mother said, by wanting it, you sit quietly. Imagine that it's there, pervading all around you, just above you, on your head, and you can actually invoke it within you. Say peace like a mantra, calm like a mantra, and let it pervade all your being. So it is as simple as that. We can do it very easily. And whenever we have food, you can invoke that peace into your food and have your food quietly. It solves half the problems of your physicality, your digestive problems, your anxiety that actually shows up in the physicality, all can come down dramatically. And whenever you go to sleep, we can do the same thing. And immediately when you wake up, you can do it. This is one way, a starting point, so that later it becomes a part of your being. So you wouldn't do anything without invoking peace or withdrawing within yourself. So all the chaos that happening outside seems a very outside thing happening for you, and nothing touches you within. The whole point here is whatever happening outside should not create an inner disturbance. So even if you have felt something disturbing, so it is for you to understand the nature of the disturbance. What is it trying to tell you? The nature meaning, is it a mental suggestion that is troubling you, or a desire that you could not actually make it happen that's troubling you? So is it just a nervous fatigue that's troubling you in the physical, or what is it? If you understand that, it will be all the more easier for you to resolve it. So for example, if the suggestion that, like the present situation, that if you touch somebody or if you get into groups, or you're going to spread the pandemic, okay, the suggestion is there, but this, how it enters you is by you accepting the suggestion or not accepting it. If you're going to accept it, you have already interiorized it. It's there lodged within you, and it comes out as fear, anxiety, and then constant doubting. Oh, will this happen to me, and will that happen to me? What if I reject it totally, not accept the suggestion, and try to look what can it be trying to tell me, and stick with that calm and go about my things? even if we had accepted the suggestion and it has already manifested, even then you can remain calm and offer yourself and surrender to the faith that you believe in. It might be mother for most of us. It could be whatever faith that you relate to. Offer totally to it and try to bring that quietude into your body too. Try not to concentrate on something that gives you, that disturbs you. Instead, concentrate on something that actually makes you feel better. Never a restlessness or anxiety make you feel better. Always the calm and quietude that makes you feel better. We'd have all experienced that. So instead of concentrating on something that gives you more restlessness, why not concentrate on something that makes you all the more happier? This attitude actually opens doors for you to new perceptions and new findings. And then you will start seeing new opportunities to relate with than being anxious about the lost ones or the old ones. So I'm so tempted to quote Savitri, which I feel is my lifeline, which gives me understanding and poise whenever I feel the need to recall it into my life, which is the aim of Sri Aurobindo when he gave us the profound epic. Two contraries needed for his great world task. Two poles whose currents wake the immense world force. Yes, we need contraries. Only then would we understand where we stand. If you don't have a contrary, some kind of relativity, how would you understand yourself? If you see someone very angry opposite you, what should be your response? A calm response. It is that is asking the perfection within you. It is asking you to work out a perfection. So every contrary that we see, if there is a chaos, there should be a calm. So every situation in your life which you think is disagreeable is asking you to look at it on face and asking you to change. Where do I bring in this change within myself? If I'm finding myself too dull and all the time wanting to sleep, it's the opposite that I must work upon. If I'm finding myself very restless and always anxious, it's the opposite that I should work upon. So, our weaknesses that we cannot find within ourselves is a projection that we see outside and gives us a mirror so that we would change ourselves within and create that force outside. But instead, if we engage in the opposite force, we are going to strengthen it instead of dissolving it. So, always, whenever we try to blame anyone or a situation, it is we are it means that we are displacing what we cannot work within ourselves. But instead of looking at the problem that way, if we could look at it as what is it trying to teach me, there's so much that we can solve within ourselves and the world outside. So pain is one indication for us to look into how we can turn it to be a lesson to be learned. Without it, we wouldn't know how to work out the perfection that is demanding of us. So, as Sri Aurobindo and Mother has told us, all of us are on earth to perfect ourselves. So, whatever comes in our way is trying to make us perfect. So, in whatever measure that we can do, it's something we are solving in the universe. Whatever you solve within yourself, it's going to dissolve in the universe. The problem is going to dissolve in the universe. So, our collective peace, our collective dissolve the chaos that we see outside. So, I had some questions coming in. People were asking, staying at home is depressing us. And so, how do we do that in this situation? I would say the same thing to the idea of depression at all. Depression can cause a dent in your being, which is in your consciousness. One thing that you can try out is distract yourself, engage in something productive, and bringing that will, impose that will to work and progress. Let us look at this word depression itself. Why would anyone be depressed? One thing would be that most often, if a desire is not fulfilled, how many desires of ours is being fulfilled in life? Most often, most whatever we desire after might not be fulfilled. That does not mean that we should sit back and lament, but try to look at this desire on face. What is it? What if you can identify what is it that is causing this? My attachment to a certain thing or something else? If you can try and identify that and reject it, Mother says you can even make a gesture of rejection like this, not allowing it within your space. And try and identify what can actually make you more centered, which is when you engage yourself too much outside, it is a dissipation of energy. You're scattering yourself. But instead, when you gather within, not dissipate your energies, and try and look in within yourself, understand what can be causing the problem, then you would have solved it to some measure. Faith, trust in the divine helps the most in such situations. An innocent person who can, a simple person, I would say, who can only trust the divine and leave the care to him will never be depressed. It's only when we're very active in our mind, thinking of 100 things, trying to solve them. It's like getting into whirlwind of thoughts, a whirlpool. This could be it, that could be the answer, this could not be it, that could be it. This getting caught in that kind of situation causes you a kind of mental turmoil. And this questioning sometimes doesn't allow you to true surrender to faith too. Because you start questioning the faith, you don't trust. That doesn't come to you naturally because you're so caught up in the mind. It's only when we rise above mind. Rising meaning you look at mind as a part of you, not the whole of you. Mind is not you. Mind is a tool that you can use. If you can say that I'm thinking, that doesn't mean, what does that mean? If I say I'm thinking, there's something else that is thinking, right? If I can see the mind, I'm not the mind. So what is it? So that is the consciousness within you, the true consciousness within you, which can see all. When we can make this true consciousness impartial, an enlightened judge, only then we can start solving things within us, which will solve things outside. So we have to identify a difference between the movement outside and the consciousness inside. It is a practice, it will take time, but with this awareness, we can start understanding what we are by looking within and living within. Living within is you do not rush out to respond. Even if you cannot immediately respond, you can take time. Calm yourself, quieten, and then give an answer. By no way can you allow a disturbance within you. If it gets lodged within you, it creates restlessness in the body, mind, and also in your reactions. So, the more calm and quiet that you can infuse in the whole of your being, it heals you within. Even the nervous agitation can cause serious disabilities to your body. So, whenever you feel a condition is arising in your body, you need to talk to your body. Ask it to calm down. Take off your attention from the pain area. Rest. Give it as much rest. Not to be worried about it. Take the medicines if need be, but your disengagement again helps here. So, the consciousness that you keep and you look at things outside is going to be your major protection. For this, we have to cultivate certain attitudes. The attitudes that Mother has repeatedly spoken about, and it's there in Mother's symbol. We need to create sincerity, a sincerity of wanting to progress to the situation that we were discussing about, and with lot of perseverance. The moment you touch a difficulty and drop it, again you're back to square one. But if you hold on to whatever that you have achieved, like you have managed to step back at one instance, and you're so glad that you didn't react and that you responded very well, keep that experience with you, hold on to it, assimilate it, so that the next time again the awareness comes. So you grow on this from awareness to awareness until it becomes part of your being. Then you don't have to try. It comes so naturally to you because your identification has now shifted from outside to inside. So whatever response is coming from that enlightened judge within you and not the responding outside person. So the attitudes that we were talking about, for first and foremost, is your sincerity, in your perseverance, and then humility. How humble you are in your responses. Because the moment we learn something, however small and minuscule, sorry, we tend to become a bit proud of ourselves, or this ego kicks in saying, okay, I know this. But whatever we have learned, the best part of ourselves is what we ought to be. This is how we are supposed to be. So, in that understanding, that is the true way of being. So, if we understand that, we will not be overwhelmed by the praises that we get for what how calm you are, how whatever you are. But this is how we ought to be, and we should be glad that we are learning towards it and we are progressing in it. So the humility, sincerity, perseverance, and the gratitude that this has come as a learning to us, all these qualities, if they're enhanced within us in the progress of time, we would become that, we would execute that, and it becomes a part of us. We cannot help ourselves but be calm in situations. So the attitudes actually help you to grow within. And as I told you before, the stepping back. With these two, we can go a long way in facing any difficulty that comes in our path. A difficulty cannot, you can, you don't have to label it as a difficulty too. Mother has said, I told you before, if we actually look at it as an opportunity, whenever a difficulty comes, with all that vibration associated to that word, instead we call it an opportunity inversely, it turns out to be an opportunity for us. We'll find new ways of doing things, like how we learned in the present pandemic. So many of them have adapted to new ways of living, and they have so easily accepted that which they had resisted before and never thought it as a possibility. So there's so many possibilities that are opening up for us now. So the new way of living. So with that calm attitude, if we can look at anything, any situation that comes across our path, it actually leads to greater progress. Progress from situation to situation. It does not mean that once I have learned something that it's dissolved forever, that I would never be facing any difficulty. Far from it. Every step that you take, every new thing that you learn, you are opening yourself to new possibilities, because when in your growth path, things might more formidable, might challenges might come across your path, asking you to be all the more calm and quiet, because this is working towards your own perfection. Everything that comes is asking for more perfection and more perfection. The reason that we are all here to work towards that perfection. So there are many methods that people can take, to each to your own nature. Some of them have adopted visualizations, where, when you want to calm your nerves, you can imagine a serene environment, being by the seaside, imagining a cool, calm, moonlit sky, and then lying on the bed, calming yourself. And some have adopted meditations, each to his own nature and attitude. And imaginations have great help. Instead of imagining all the difficulties, situations, you can imagine inversely a happy situation. There are these auto suggestions and affirmatives that people do to calm themselves. So there are different methods that whatever suits your personality, we can adapt it and then make it our way of being for solving the situation. Some of them I've seen have totally retired and felt that they cannot engage in work anymore. That would be the last thing that you can do to oneself. All of us have to work and act in whatever measure what the present situation offers us. We don't have to resent what work had been imposed or not even imposed, had come on our lap at that point of time. Anything, nothing great or small. This is what I am doing in the present situation, and so I will give it my full heart and love and do the work. That opens again new possibility and infuses the calm within us. No work is small or great as long as you engage in it with love and serenity. These are the attitudes once that we cultivate gives us a lot of peace in mind, which is a must in the present situation and always. That I feel strongly was lacking in the world, and that's why we're facing the present situation at a global level. The restlessness, the running around, the anxiety had to be calmed down at one point, which must have come in whatever form, telling us to step back, look into ourselves, cultivate that within us. So, those who are very vitally active, which meaning those who constantly engage themselves in work and cannot sit quiet for a moment, this becomes a challenge for them. But exactly this is what they should be doing. Take it as an opportunity to work reverse on the attitude. Bring that calm force into the work that you're doing. The work that these vitally strong people do is of immense use and force to the world. But if they can do it with an inner poise and calm, that has a greater force to solve the problems instead of creating conflict situations. So it's the very transformation that the world is seeking is what is happening around us. So, this transformation in the strong personalities who can actually execute a better force with a stronger force, with that calm attitude that they can bring. The same with people who are very sensitive and very calm by nature, how well they can engage with that quietude into the work. That becomes their challenge or the work that they can engage into. So, if we look at it, so it's a kind of a big opportunity for all of us to look at it not as a chaos as we know, but teaching us the calm that we should be, the peace that we should cultivate within us, the quietude that we should infuse within us. Peace is always there within us. It is a state of being which is which cannot be disturbed. Peace is always there. It's that we are not recognizing it. It's there within us. It's there around us. It's the quietude that you can impose within yourself can open you to that peace within you. So quietude is when you're disturbed, you lose it. So when you can actually try and hold on to it and infuse it, it's all peace within you. And that from that peace, whatever you aspire, it's I can tell you with some definite confidence that it will happen. It has been a personal experience to me that when I withdraw, calm myself, and then aspire, the things outside will be solved sooner than I would have imagined. So there should be no doubt about it. You cannot become restless saying, now I'm peaceful, I am calm. Why is this not happening? Why is the situation the same? Why is this that not happening? This restlessness about you is not making it happen. Whatever you want to aspire, you have to aspire with a strong will and then leave it to the divine or just keep calm within you. Only within that calm, in that quietude, can things manifest. As Sri Aurobindo had said, out of that calm and peace, the whole world had manifested. Why wouldn't your small thought, which is always longing to take form, will not form if you're calm within? We cannot delude ourselves that we are calm, but even that becomes a practice. You cannot say, I'm calm now and become restless about it. I want to be calm, I want to be calm. No, you become it. Slowly quieten yourself down and then enjoy that calm. Aspire for what you want to become, and it will definitely show the results in future. But we cannot be attached to the results again. Oh, I aspired for something and something else is showing up. No, even then, it is a test to your calmness and peace and quietude. The highest aspiration that we can have is to leave it to the higher force or the divine or the faith or whatever you relate with as higher than you. We offer it and surrender and then go about doing our work with the same sincerity that we've been doing. And it opens up as a new opportunity and a better one than you had been before. So once you have experienced that, if you hold on to it, that experience, and to try and recall that experience every time you face a difficulty, it is then that you're learning to live with an inner poise, and then slowly building that being calm within yourself. This is what we have to do, and very imperative for the present situation, and be an example for everyone. We cannot preach what we cannot practice. So we cannot tell our children to keep quiet, keep calm, don't be anxious when we don't do it ourselves. When we don't do something and talk about it, it doesn't have the force. So, as Mother has said, it's a moment of practice can teach better than hundreds of lectures that we can give. So the more you practice that and become, it is a contagion, a positive contagion. This peace, this calm will reverse the whole effect of the restlessness and anxiety that situations cause. Whatever, pandemic or a simple situation or a simple disagreement with other person, everything from a smallest to the huge problem can be dissolved by trying to infuse this within us. So, what becomes the important, the most important way of dealing is one, developing that attitude, not being too engaged in the surface happenings. Engaging, yes, but with the right poise, which is a practice, and we cannot expect anything to happen immediately in a few months or a year, but wait patiently and persevere for it to be part of others. If we do that, it can even happen overnight. If we make it part of our consciousness, keep thinking of calm and serene things, or engaging with the world in that attitude. We have to resist all the temptations of drawing out, but act out as a response and not a reaction. And you will start feeling it in your environment. You will start feeling it in your body. You will start perceiving it in your atmosphere. So when you don't judge, when you only respond as the situation demands, then it gives you a certain kind of peace. That is the peace that you hold on. We'll have to start doing it with every situation. Every small situation is pointing towards that. It's not a big pandemic, but even the smallest that you can do at home, Even mother said, even something crashes, or if it's an accident, catastrophe, or even a small thing is a small disagreement, from small to big, you have to step back and then only respond, calling in the peace within you. Only then you'll be able to solve the problem most effectively to the kind of understanding you have at that point of time. So we do not label anything chaotic, but if we can look at it as organizing something, how you organize yourself happens to solve the problem outside. It is calling from some organization within you. Observe, observation. If in the mind, if we have chaotic thoughts, one thing that you can do is to start observing your thoughts. When you observe your thoughts, you will know that they're like chaotic, streaming, coming in, all kinds of thoughts. After you learn to observe your thoughts, you will have to start watching over them. Watching is you discriminate what thought is useful to you, what is not. And then, whatever you think is useful for your progress and growth, you accept it. What you think is very harmful, you start rejecting it. So, this observing, watching over your thoughts, and then you slowly start working on mastering your thoughts. How do you do it? You learn to think only when needed. Most of us live in thoughts only. We do not know, we cannot separate our consciousness from our thoughts. We think what we are, our thoughts. If you have to master your thoughts, you need to observe them, watch them, and discriminate what can be allowed inside, what has to be discarded. That is judging your thoughts, which should be done from your inner poise, but not get tangled in the ego that whatever pleases you, you accept, and what doesn't agree with you, you you kind of, what did I say? You start pleasing yourself. You say, oh, this thought is what you like, something, and you accept it. No, you have to indiscriminately watch yourself, project outside like as you were not it. Put yourself outside. Mother has given this exercise like project yourself outside, like on the screen, and look at it impassionately. And then you understand where you stand in the situation. Are you trying to tell yourself because it pleases you? Or is it the right thing to do? It is when it is clear to you that you're not pleasing yourself somewhere. You're not actually clouding yourself to believe something to be true. But as an impassionate judge, this is not useful for my progress, then you discard it and you accept what is actually helpful for you, all your positive thoughts. And if you feel that these thoughts are really invading you and tormenting you, there's some exercises like how you can even write down on a paper, and then it comes out of your mind. It's there out, and then discard it. There are other exercises too. You totally, when you think this thought is too disturbing for you, you can actually, mother said, make a gesture and drive it away. Because every thought looks for a formation. It goes out and looks to make itself manifest. So it's very important what you think. The more positive thoughts that you give out are the ones that are going to make the formations. They're trying to manifest. So the more positive, however the situation looks outside, you give it a positive affirmation, it goes out to manifest. And it's all the more helpful. And that's why we see many apps, all that pandemic, the chaos that we see could be a collective, a negative vibration or a bad will, a collective bad will. And how do we counter it? Giving it the opposite thought, the positive will, the calm attitude, and the situation becomes, it will resolve. We have seen the situations of pandemics even before Spanish flu, plagues, and how is it they were solved without any outside medications? It's because of the divine force that works and dissolves the situations. If we can participate in that, we can solve the situation all the more faster. Instead, the recipients that we are, if we come in the way and with our thoughts, with our fears, with our anxieties, block the force, the divine force, the healing force that's coming in, the process, nevertheless, it will be dissolved by the divine but will be delayed. This much, as much as we can participate in the divine work, we are solving the situations in the world. So this positivity, this calm attitude can solve a lot of situations and even stop wars. So it's how we learn to control our mind is what is important. Control being not suppression, but bring to our awareness what we thought is our own and being identified with it, but dissociating from it, and then learn that it is not our thought. It is the thought that is circulating outside, of which we are bringing it in. Instead, we refuse to identify with it and tell ourselves that this is circulating outside. I won't make a part of it, part of myself, and discard it. Opens a new thinking, a new force within you. So you don't accept all that circulates outside. But the moment the awareness tells you that this is disturbing, you discard it. The moment you sense that there's some positive force in it, then you accept it. This is what the inner judge means, the inner poise means. It's not that you are totally thoughts and impulses. They're there outside. How much of it that you take within you, how much you individualize that is what you are. So, our reaching out to the positive force and individualizing it within us has a repercussion effect, and you give it out and you reinforce it. Instead of aligning with all the suggestions that everybody has to say about how bad things can be, how the situations can be, we imagine the opposite, we internalize that, and we execute that. This can be worked out with all our relationships, with whomever you relate with. This does not mean that you take in everything that's thrown at you, but you be an impartial judge. You can be firm in your reactions, but with a calm attitude with no disturbance. We have a great example of Gita before us, how Arjuna was so disturbed when he saw his uncles and a whole lot of relatives, grandsire Bhishma, that he was to fight against. That is the grand example and a great gift to our nation and culture, telling you that you have to practice equanimity. Equanimity is you keeping that serenity in all kinds of vicissitudes, pleasure or pain, grief or happiness, everything. We have to cultivate that equanimity, that balance, that creates the harmony. This was the whole lesson Sri Krishna was giving Arjuna. Can you imagine in a battlefield, you have to keep calm? How is that possible? This is the example we have got. A great example to look up to for us to imbibe in any measure with whatever do we do with our life.
Shrivalli Didi, sorry to interrupt. We are running out of time. If you could take a minute to conclude.
Yeah.
We can take the questions.
Okay, so I think I've extended, but yes. So the topic had been calm amidst chaos. We have spoken a bit about it or a lot about it. What I would like to tell all of you is this two words that you have to go back to is stepping back and then act out from inner poise and don't accept any difficulty as a difficulty but as an opportunity. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Shrivalli ji, for such a vital topic. And I'm personally feeling so calm after listening to this. So before we move on to the question and answers, I would like all the participants to please fill in the feedback forms. So I am putting the link in the chat box. Could you please take a minute to just fill it up? And with this, we would also like to take the opportunity to announce our next session, which is on Bhagavad Gita for Youth in the light of Sri Aurobindo, which will be held next Sunday, 11th October, 8 p.m. onwards. and the interaction will be with Ojasi Parameswaranji. So moving to the question and answers, our first question is from Soumya ji from Facebook, who asked, "What must I do if I get angry? How do I let go?"
As I had told you, anger is something not your own. It is a vibration that is circulating around. And once it enters, it rises up within you and takes its form. So, whenever you sense that now that you're getting angry, there's something you have to develop within yourself, that wanting to get out of it itself is an awareness. So, once that awareness comes within you, what you do is whenever it's rising within you, you immediately dissociate yourself from it. Start looking at it as not yours and something else. That kind of gives you a stability, and you will stop it at that moment. Even if that doesn't happen, as a mental suggestion also, you can try and tell yourself, I will not give it an expression. The more you stop giving it expression is when it will stop tormenting you. But this has to be done as an exercise. You don't have to treat it as a suppression, but you should refuse an expression to it. Even if you have tried it for a few times, there comes a time when you will lose it. But that's all right. But you have started working on it. That's what matters. Even if you fail 10 times, in the 11th time, you can do it. And hold on to that experience and try to use it the next time. This is what happens when you face anger too. You step back, don't identify with it and react. Because anger is a contagion. If you shout at somebody, they'll carry it. If they internalize it, they're going to do it to someone else, and he goes on taking it out, and it kind of creates a bad ripple in the atmosphere. So if you try, you're really solving a situation. You should try and dissociate, step back, and respond.
Thank you for that answer. The next question is from Sweta Reddy ji. How to be a good listener when somebody is sharing their problems with us?
Listening is an art. So the same mantra works for everything. As soon as somebody starts talking, your thought starts whirling in your head. You will want to listen what you want to and engage only with that. That makes you a half listener. You're not actually putting attention to what they're trying to say. So the most important thing is here, as we've spoken all through, is trying to become calm in your mind. Because the moment you start thinking that he could be saying this could be that, this could have been that, this is what you want to understand it in a certain way, then you become a bad listener. What happens is the moment somebody is talking, you have to step back again and try and give your full attention to it, full concentration. This way you understand each word. But most often what happens is you would understand what you would want to understand already. that doesn't make you a true listener. So calm yourself as much as when you are speaking or when you're listening. Mother has said, don't speak unnecessarily without stepping back, without withdrawing within. The same thing we can do to listening also, same application. You know what Mother had said? To speak for a good sense, even for a minute, you need to keep quiet for a day. And if it's for few hours, it's like a few days. So the more quiet that you cultivate within yourself, you will be a good listener and a good speaker too.
Thank you for that answer too. The next question is from Trupti ji from Facebook. In our life, sometimes your close ones take advantage of your vulnerable side. You realize that this is wrong, but you can't leave that person, and also you don't want to let them take the advantage of it. So, what can we do in such circumstances?
Yeah. Trupti, what happens in life is most often we would want to change a situation or someone. But whatever that's happening outside you, if you try to look at it, what is it trying to tell you through that person or a circumstance? There is something within us that we need to actually change. So, what happens is either the person or the situation will change automatically. So, some they are being a mirror to what is lurking within us, but we are not able to bring it to our conscious awareness. So look at it as what is it that I need to work here on myself? Because nothing will be on the outside that we can make a change. But what we can do in our own, with our own will and power, is what we can do with ourselves. So the situation might change, the person might change. So because everybody is a mirror, like how we were talking about, everything is a contrary situation, means that something that we have to work within ourselves. Look at it that way. Then you will find the right response.
Thank you so much. So, our last question of the day would be taken up by Palak. So, over to you, Palak.
Thanks, Raghav. First of all, I would really like to thank Srivalli ji for such an enriching session. So, really, really grateful to you for the same. I just want to ask a very quick question. So, you talked about one of the aspects that touched upon faith, like, if somebody has faith, or as we know, faith is the shortest way to experience the state of bliss in that sense, or be in that protection. um a lot of times, some people, like many people, have that kind of a barrier in that sense to even start having that kind of a faith, or start opening up, or there is some kind of a barrier that kind of holds them. So what would you suggest, like, as first steps for somebody like this to break through that kind of a barrier, like be it mental barrier or some personal situations that one might have experienced earlier, that is kind of creating a, maybe that barrier itself is not true, but that is kind of creating a barrier for that faith itself to manifest.
Faith, I would say, comes for simple people, which I said earlier. But the more we are in our mind is when we doubt that anything beyond mind can solve a situation. But as it is in our experience with life, we have been seeing that many a situation is not being solved by mind. Though they try and say that they have figured out a solution, there's something else cropping up somewhere, because mind can only see a part of the whole. And for you to know the whole, you have to grow beyond mind, which is when actually you dissociate from mind. Why we are talking about this is when we cannot cultivate faith. Faith is something that Mother has said many times, that how a child trusts its mother, its parents, with such simplicity that they'll protect and look after it. So that's how the faith happens even in adults too. The simple faith that can carry you in all difficulties, in all kinds of situations. But what I can best possibly think for your question is maybe not try to understand it so much with the mind, because when we exhaust all possibilities of trying to solve the situation, it kinds of opens in person the need to surrender to something higher. And when that happens, maybe if you hold on to it, it will deepen. Because mostly it is in pain, when we don't know the solution, we tend to open up. The receptivity comes. And maybe that's why the pain is existent. Once that happens, probably the pain also will go away. So if we don't actually try to understand it with mind, probably we'll be more receptive and understand it in a differently. Not even understand, perceive it, I can say. I hope this is very difficult to tell you in words, but I hope that it had somewhere helped you to some perception.
Yeah, no, really grateful to you, Shivali ji. Thank you so much. With that, I would also like to thank all the participants for joining us in this very inspiring and illuminating session with Shrivalli ji. Lot of heartfelt gratitude to Shrivalli ji for joining us today in this session and inspiring so many of us about a topic that is really present and really something that we experience in our day-to-day lives. Really, really grateful to you for joining us. To all the participants, looking forward to seeing you at 8 p.m. on next Sunday. Thank you so much, everyone.